Welcome to my channel. Your support means a great deal to us, and we'd love to know where you're joining us from. Are you at home or on the go? Feel free to share with us below. Now, let's dive into today's story. The breaking point. Megan lived in the city now, a stark contrast to the small town where she grew up. She had traded the quiet roads and familiar faces for a life of deadlines, meetings, and the incessant hum of urban existence. Every morning, she woke up early, brewed a pot of strong coffee, and checked her emails before heading to the office, a 10-minute walk away. Her apartment, though small, was cozy. She had intentionally chosen this part of the city, far enough from the hustle, but close enough to keep her work a priority. Megan was 34, co-founder of a promising health tech startup specializing in AI-driven medical solutions. To many, her job sounded almost futuristic, filled with jargon that people often couldn't grasp. She found herself explaining the same thing over and over at family gatherings. "It's a tech company, but in healthcare," she'd say, only to be met with vague nods or distracted glances. The worst part was how her family never quite seemed to grasp the significance of what she had accomplished. Her parents had always preferred Emily, her older sister, the golden child. Emily, with her perfect skin, always polished appearance, and effortless charm, had been the apple of their eye for as long as Megan could remember. She was married to Thomas, a successful businessman, and had 2 young children that Megan's parents fawned over constantly. Emily had everything: beauty, charm, a perfect family. While Megan was always the shadow, hidden behind Emily's brilliance, trying her best to stay out of the spotlight. At Thanksgiving dinner, Emily would inevitably get the lion's share of attention. Everyone would comment on her gorgeous outfit, her ability to manage the kids so effortlessly, or the impeccable way she presented herself. Meanwhile, Megan would sit quietly, eating her turkey, making small talk, but never receiving more than a passing acknowledgement. "Is everything going well with your job, Megan?" her mom would ask, her voice laced with obligatory interest. "I read something about your company in the paper last week. It's impressive, I guess." But it wasn't the same as the praise Emily received. It wasn't the same as hearing, "You look beautiful today," or "I'm so proud of you." Megan had learned long ago that no matter how hard she worked or how much she achieved, it was never enough to earn her parents' approval. For years, she had been the one to shoulder the family's burdens in silence, hoping that one day they would finally see her for who she was. But the validation never came. In her heart, Megan had always believed that if she worked hard enough, if she carried the weight of the family's expectations without complaint, they would eventually acknowledge her. But over time, that hope faded, slowly replaced by a quiet resentment. The more she gave, the less they seemed to care. The breaking point came on the night before her father's birthday. Megan had just closed a major funding deal for her company, one that would significantly expand their operations. The investor was based in Silicon Valley, and the round had been incredibly competitive. But Megan had led her team to victory. It was a huge milestone for her startup, and she couldn't have been prouder of the work she had put in. Yet, she didn't have the luxury of celebrating. She had to keep pushing forward, maintain the momentum. Megan had always tried to make time for family events, even when it meant sacrificing personal achievements for the sake of appearances. Her father's birthday was no exception. She planned to fly back home the next day, take a few days off, and help out with the party preparations. She had always done this, ensuring everything was perfect for her parents. When she called her father to let him know when she would arrive, he answered in a way that immediately struck her as off. "Megan, if you're coming home, don't bother this year," he said, his voice oddly neutral, but still firm. Confusion crept into her voice as she spoke. "Dad, what do you mean? I thought I could help out with the party prep like always. I even cleared my schedule for this." Her father's response was quick and dismissive. "Emily's bringing her husband, Thomas. You don't need to come. It will just make things awkward. You know, with your job, it's hard to explain to people. It's just best you stay away this year." The words hit Megan like a punch to the gut. She felt a sharp coldness spreading through her chest. Are you saying I make the family look bad? Are you telling me I shouldn't come home because I'm embarrassing? Her voice trembled, but she couldn't help it. The pain was sudden, sharp, and raw. Her father didn't back down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father," he said, his voice growing colder with every word. The line went dead before Megan could say anything more. She stared at the phone in her hand, feeling a wave of disbelief wash over her. For years, she had silently carried the weight of their expectations. She had given them everything, her time, her money, her silence, and this was how they repaid her. She wasn't even allowed to be part of the family celebration because of her job, a job they could never seem to understand. She sat in her chair, her body numb, the weight of her father's words pressing down on her like a heavy stone. The phone had gone silent, but the emptiness in her apartment felt suffocating. For the first time in her life, Megan realized something she had always been too afraid to admit. She wasn't really part of the family anymore. Her parents had always leaned on her, expecting her to fix things, to clean up their messes, and to support them financially when they needed it. But when it came down to it, she was nothing more than a tool they used when convenient. And now, she wasn't even welcome at the family's most important event. The day after the call with her father, Megan found herself unable to focus on her work. It wasn't like her. She was usually all business, always with a clear purpose, a sharp mind. But today, everything felt dull, muted. Her inbox was flooded with emails, her calendar full of back-to-back meetings, but none of it seemed to matter. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation with her father, his words replayed in her mind like a broken record. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." It was a finality she hadn't expected. Megan leaned back in her chair, the light from her office window barely warming her skin. She had always prided herself on being able to keep her emotions in check, especially at work. But today was different. Her eyes wandered to the photo on her desk, a family photo from several years ago, a time when things were simpler, when she still held on to the illusion that things could change. It was a picture from her last Christmas with them, before everything began to shift. Emily, radiant as always, held the family together with her charm, and Megan, awkward and quiet, stood on the edge, barely visible in the frame. It was always like this. Always Emily in the center of everything. Always Megan on the sidelines, invisible unless they needed her help. She had spent so many years trying to fix things, hoping that one day they would see her as more than just the silent worker or the family banker. But no more. She hadn't told her parents she wasn't coming home for the birthday. They had made it clear she wasn't welcome. Instead, Megan made a decision that, at first, felt like betrayal, but quickly solidified as the right choice. She would stop paying their bills. She had been silently funding their lifestyle for over 2 years, keeping their household running while they pretended she wasn't there, pretending they didn't need her. Megan opened her laptop, her fingers moving almost instinctively over the keyboard as she logged into her banking app. She had been sending them money each month, $3,000 at first, then more as their financial demands increased. And she never once questioned it. It wasn't that she didn't mind helping. It was that she had always hoped they would show some gratitude. She wasn't asking for praise or thanks. She just wanted acknowledgement. She pulled up the transaction history. The amount was staggering. Over $70,000 in just 2 years. A mix of utility bills, car repairs, and the occasional emergency that came up, like when her father's old car broke down or when the furnace stopped working. Every time they asked, and every time, she quietly sent the money without hesitation. But now, as she scrolled through the endless list of payments, the weight of it all hit her. She had sacrificed so much for them, given them so much of herself, and in return, they had never once asked if she was okay. They never even noticed when she was struggling. With a deep breath, Megan hovered over the button to cancel the automatic payments. No more. It was time to stop being the invisible person who cleaned up everyone's mess. Time to stop acting like their financial support was something she owed them. She clicked the button. For days, Megan sat in her apartment, caught in the stillness of her decision. She hadn't heard from her parents, and she didn't expect to. After that phone call with her father, the silence between them had deepened. She had never felt more alone, yet a strange sense of peace began to settle over her. It was as if she had stepped out of a shadow she had been living in for years. The days passed slowly, and Megan buried herself in her work. She threw herself into meetings, strategizing with her team, and diving deep into the development of their AI healthcare platform. The company was growing rapidly, and it demanded every ounce of her attention. For the first time in a long time, Megan found solace in her work, a place where she was valued for what she brought to the table, not who she was related to. It wasn't long before her phone rang again. The number was familiar. Her mother. Megan stared at the screen, the old reflex of answering still strong within her. She let it ring, feeling the weight of the decision she had made. She didn't want to hear their voices, didn't want to hear the same tired demands. The voicemail notification came almost immediately. She listened. "Hi, Megan." Her mother's voice was shaky, uncertain. "I know things were a little tense the other night, but could you just help us out this time? The power's out and we don't know what's going on. Your dad's really upset. Please call when you can." Megan's fingers tightened around the phone, her breath shallow. She knew what was coming. It was always the same, a crisis, a plea for help, and the same expectation that she would drop everything to take care of them. She deleted the voicemail without a second thought. Another text came through from her father. "Megan, what happened? The electricity's out. We've been trying to reach you. Call the provider. You know how it is." She set the phone down. The silence in her apartment more deafening than any words could ever be. They didn't care about her. They never had. She was just the problem solver, the backup plan, the silent fixer. But she wasn't going to be that person anymore. The days blurred together. Megan didn't return any of their calls or messages. Her resolve only grew stronger. She was done being the family's unpaid accountant, the one they could count on when things fell apart. Then came the final twist of fate. While reviewing a new hire report at the office, Megan's eyes froze on one name, Alex Matthews. Her heart skipped a beat. Alex was Emily's new boyfriend, the one who had started showing up at family gatherings just recently. The same man her parents had been so eager to impress. As Megan skimmed the report, she saw that Alex was now transferring to her company's Boston office. His current position was listed as head of finance at a prestigious firm, and now he was about to become her subordinate. It was too much to ignore. The irony was too sharp. Megan sat back in her chair, absorbing the full weight of the situation. The man who had become a key part of her family's life, the one who had been introduced to her parents as the perfect match for Emily, was about to work for her. Unbeknownst to him, the woman he had dismissed as just Emily's sister. The thought lingered in her mind, unsettling but oddly satisfying. She wasn't the one who had caused this. It wasn't her doing. The universe, it seemed, had a way of turning things around, and Megan had no intention of making this easy for them. The next day, Alex showed up at the office for his first day. He looked around nervously, perhaps trying to settle into his new environment. When their eyes met across the room, Megan couldn't help but notice the flicker of recognition in his gaze. He wasn't sure whether to approach her or not. "Alex," Megan said, her tone cool but polite. "Welcome to the team. I'll be overseeing your integration into the department. I trust we'll have a productive relationship." Alex stammered for a moment, his face flushed. "Megan, you're the co-founder?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Megan nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "Yes, we're very glad to have you with us. I'll be reviewing the financial reports with you shortly. For now, why don't you settle in?" He nodded, speechless, and hurriedly left the room. Megan didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel vindicated. But for the first time in her life, she felt in control. The world had shifted beneath her, and now they would see her for who she truly was. The days that followed Alex's first day at the office felt strangely quiet, almost too still. Megan tried to bury herself in her work, but it wasn't easy. There was always a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. She knew her family would eventually try to reach out. They always did. After all, they had no one else to rely on. Sure enough, a week later, her phone buzzed again. Another call from her father. She hesitated before answering, the same tired tension creeping up her spine. The phone call could mean anything. Another request, another expectation, or perhaps another accusation for being selfish. Megan took a deep breath and pressed the green button. "Nicole," her father's voice came through, strained and weary. "We've been having trouble with the power again. Can you please?" Megan immediately cut him off, her voice steady but firm. "I know what you're going to say, Dad, and the answer is no. I'm not going to fix this. I'm not your solution anymore." There was a long, uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. She could feel the weight of the unspoken words, the disbelief, the shock that she wasn't doing what she had always done. "Megan," her father began, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "We've always relied on you. You can't just cut us off like this. You're our daughter." "Really?" Megan's voice was cold now, her resolve hardening with each word. "Because for years, I've been nothing but a financial safety net. You never cared about my life, my struggles, my work. You never asked if I was okay. But when something goes wrong, suddenly I'm supposed to drop everything for you. No more." There was another silence, this time filled with tension. Her father spoke again, quieter this time. "You're being unreasonable." "I'm not," Megan replied, her voice unwavering. "You're just used to me being your backup. But no more. I've learned to take care of myself, and I'm not going to let you manipulate me into fixing your problems anymore. You've made it clear that I'm not welcome, and I'm fine with that." The line went dead before she could say anything more. Megan felt a strange, empty relief wash over her. For years, she had bent to their will, sacrificing her peace, her happiness, for their approval. But now she was done. She wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. As Megan had predicted, the silence from her family didn't last long. A few days later, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Emily, her older sister. Megan's thumb hovered over the screen, but she didn't feel the familiar rush of obligation to respond. She was done with that. She opened the message anyway. "Nicole, I know you're upset, but this is ridiculous," Emily wrote. "Mom and Dad are freaking out about the power. They're making it a bigger deal than it is. I need you to step up. You know they're not good at handling these things on their own." Megan let out a laugh, bitter and hollow. She put the phone down for a moment, trying to process the message. Emily, always the perfect daughter, always the one who got the love, the praise, the attention, couldn't understand why Megan was angry. She had always relied on Megan to be the one to fix everything. Megan typed a response, each word carefully chosen. "You're right, Emily. I should have stepped up for them, except I've done it for years, without once getting a thank you. And now I'm done. You can handle it this time. You're the one they always talk about after all." She hit send and put her phone back down, a strange sense of freedom filling her chest. The weight of her family's expectations was finally beginning to lift. The next day, Megan sat in her office, her mind completely consumed with the decisions she had made. She hadn't heard from Emily or her parents since that message. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for her to cave, to give in, as she always had. But she wasn't going to. This time, she was going to let them face the consequences of their own actions. As the afternoon wore on, Megan lost herself in the spreadsheets and reports, feeling her work again become her solace. But there was always a part of her, buried deep inside, that couldn't fully ignore the fact that her family, the people she had given everything to, were still out there, struggling. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that Megan found out what had really happened. She had just finished a meeting with a potential investor when an unexpected email landed in her inbox. The subject line read, "New hire confirmation, Alex Matthews." Megan's stomach dropped. Alex, Emily's boyfriend, the man she had been forced to listen to about how perfect he was. Megan opened the email, her eyes scanning the contents quickly. It didn't take long for her to realize that Alex was being transferred to her office, her department. The email stated that he would be joining the finance team in Boston as part of a strategic restructuring. Her mind raced. She had been expecting something like this eventually. After all, Emily had always made it clear how much she valued his position in her life. But now, Alex was about to be one of her subordinates. She felt a strange, ironic sense of satisfaction. The day Alex walked into the office, Megan knew it was inevitable. Their paths would cross, there was no avoiding it. He walked into her office carrying a folder with a mix of anticipation and nervousness on his face. Megan looked up at him, trying not to let her emotions show. He wasn't aware of who she really was, not fully. To him, she was just another colleague in the office, nothing more. But to her, it felt like a cosmic twist of fate. "Alex," she said, her tone cool but professional, "I trust you're settling in well?" Alex blinked in surprise. "Megan? You're the co-founder?" His voice was almost a whisper, and for a split second, Megan saw the recognition in his eyes. He quickly recovered, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Yes," she said with a faint smile. "I'll be reviewing the financial strategy with you later this week. Let me know if you need any assistance with your transition." Alex nodded, his face pale. He quickly left the room without saying much more. Megan didn't feel victorious. There was no joy in the moment, but she couldn't deny the satisfaction of seeing the truth unfold on its own, without her needing to say a word. In that moment, she knew that everything had shifted. The family she had worked so hard to please, the people who had taken her for granted, would now understand the full extent of who she was. Days passed, and Megan couldn't shake the feeling of something inevitable about to happen. She had lived so much of her life under the shadow of her family's expectations, but now, for the first time, she was free. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need them to love her. What she needed was to love herself, to finally see her worth. And as the days continued to unfold, she realized something important. She had made the right choice. She hadn't done this for revenge or to hurt them. She had done it because she finally understood that self-respect and boundaries were essential, and she was no longer going to live in their shadow. The next message from Emily didn't surprise her. "I can't believe you did this. You've ruined everything." Megan didn't respond. She didn't need to. The silence spoke louder than any words ever could.